So let's start with the invasives.
Okay.
I see a beautiful view out here. What do you see, Jess?
Invasives. Buzzkill.
Okay.
We're triaging.
Okay.
You're getting rid of the invasive first. If you don't get those under control, they'll go everywhere, even more. Know what you're dealing with so that you know how panicked you should be. Garlic mustard. You have to get this. You gotta get it at the roots. You have to get all of it.
Okay.
So I would just do this, loosen it up,
Okay.
and then just gently pull it out. You have to get this.
Oh.
You have to get this.
Okay.
Interrupting things like the berries from the bittersweet, the barberry, the burning bush, the multiflora rose. Yeah, we're pulling bittersweet up.
I cut a couple inch section out of the vines all the way around the tree's trunk, and now the vines are totally dead above where I cut them. I ultimately accomplished what I wanted to do, which was to prevent the vine from competing with and shading out the tree's leaves at the top of its crown. As you can see, the vine still lives below where I made the cuts. I didn't apply any herbicide this time to the vines after I cut them, which would have killed the roots. So the vine will begin to creep up the tree slowly again. However, now that the hard work is done, it's easier to keep up with.
Invasive plants are such a massive threat to the integrity of our ecosystems and our biodiversity, and they're so hard to deal with. They're super virulent, they're super difficult to kill. In order to kill them, sometimes you have to use herbicide, which is a really difficult thing to understand and to accept. We can't reason ourselves out of this situation. We have to take action. And it's uncomfortable and it sucks, but here we are. So it's our job as ecosystem stewards, when we encounter situations like this, to take a deep breath and do what we got to do to care for our ecosystems.
What would you say the ecological impact of using chemicals is on these sites where you work?
Sure. So the ecological impact of not using these is that you really can't have a low maintenance landscape, because all of these plants are going to those spots that you're not mowing, that you're leaving as more habitat for wildlife, because they would just come in and take over. The ecological impact of using herbicides I see is pretty insignificant on the scale of what you're facing. It's kind of a trade-off.
How do you deal with this? I recommend that you do two things. One is that you research articles on university extension. When you do university extensions, you know it's going to be research backed. So that's where I would go first. University extension, UNH, UMass, Rutgers, Penn State. Okay, so you type in, university extension plus, common burdock or plus poison ivy or whatever. Then you find out what the most effective mechanism is for eradication. That may or may not include treatment with herbicide. But then you want to know, what is the right herbicide? What is the right time of year to apply it? In what percentage? So that you're doing an efficient and effective treatment and you're not wasting your herbicide. You're not wasting your time. And that's important. Then you're minimizing the use of the herbicide ultimately. Okay, so there's that. There's also a Facebook group called Invasive Plant ID and Removal in North America or something like that. It's an amazing resource because there's really knowledgeable people on there. So I would join that group if you're on Facebook and research. You can search, Tree of Heaven, you don't have that, but Tree of Heaven, poison ivy, whatever it is, even though again, poison ivy is an invasive, but still it's going to be covered there. And then what is the best treatment? And then you'll get all these people weighing in.
Really well-meaning gardeners that want to take the matters of invasives into their own hands might turn to beneath their kitchen cabinet for something that they think, oh, this is vinegar is natural, salt is natural. But when you do that, you're essentially unleashing an unchecked, chemistry experiment right in your soil. And these when they break down with water, end up staying in your soil for quite a long time and cause salinity poisoning. The pH can be permanently altered, and it doesn't really treat the invasive. All it's doing is making the soil uninhabitable for those natives even further. So if you manage to even hand pull the invasive, you're left with soil that's really unusable at that point. And people mean well, but it's better to use a targeted, responsible application of herbicide on a sunny day with no rain than it is to ever put salt on your soil, and vinegar and baking soda. Stay away from those.
So let's talk about the difference between industrial farming chemical application and ecological chemical application. We have to differentiate between industrial farming, golf courses, lawn care industry that are using a lot of herbicides in huge quantities for no ecological benefit from the highly beneficial use of herbicide in an ecological setting.
It's so much. It would be great to have someone help you. Someone coming in and applying herbicide has to have an applicator's license. So what I recommend to people sometimes who don't want to or can't afford to have a company that comes and specializes in this is you get your own herbicide, one of you cuts, the other paints right after, or you hire someone to come who just does the cutting and you go behind them and treat. So that's an efficient use of everybody's time. So you're paying someone to come and cut, they drag the stuff, you're treating right behind them, like within 20, 30 minutes, okay? So obviously follow the instructions on the label, wear the gloves, etc. But what I would say is ask around on the garden group.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, looking to kill a tree of heaven and some bittersweet. Does anybody have some herbicide I can borrow? Like, can I borrow your container, use a little bit and give it back? So
Yeah.
this is, you're not increasing the demand, you're not then sitting here with hazardous material. You're
Yeah.
saving money. The sense of joy I'm experiencing right now after this Japanese knotweed was sprayed a week and a half or so ago. I'm ecstatic. Look at this. So you first, or the person who raised the alarm 10 years ago, what took so long?
It takes time to believe how bad this plant can be.
Yeah.
It wasn't generally instantly recognizable that you had to do this,
Yeah.
right? But as I've watched the plants grow from small patches of 5 feet to 40 feet over 10 years, you realize that it's better to do it sooner because you use a lot less herbicide.
Right. And money.
And money.
Yeah. Thank you for your leadership.
Oh, you're quite
Really?
welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for your support.
Yeah. It's easy to feel despair about the state of things with invasive plants. I know I do quite often. It's very depressing, looking around and just seeing how plants are being taken over by the invasive species, and this impacts the ecosystem. And it's awful. It's just awful. But we can't just say, oh, it's too late, or that's too bad, it's not my problem, Certainly, the more we can do on our individual properties, the better. We can volunteer, we can take action, we can advocate, we can help fund organizations that deal with invasive species. We can, get involved in whatever way we can, but we can't lose hope. We have to galvanize around this. We have to join in, in this together. I think we can make an impact if we work together, and it's worth it. It's so rewarding, to see the impact when people do come together and try to manage a situation with some invasive plants. It's just, you get this feeling of, oh, wow, yeah, that's great. Let's do more of that. So let's do more of that.